12 years. That's how long I built a life with her. That's how long I thought we were solid, maybe not perfect, but steady, real. I cooked dinners, fixed leaky faucets, showed up to her family's birthdays with the right bottle of wine. I was the guy who held the camera during vacations, the one who remembered her mom's favorite casserole. And I wore my faith in her like a badge, until I found out I'd been nothing more than a comfortable lie. Turns out, her mother thought I wasn't ambitious enough. So my wife found someone who was. And I, God help me, helped her cover it up for over a decade. You ever look back at a moment that seemed harmless and realize it was the first crack? For me, it was a Sunday dinner, probably 7 or 8 months into dating Vanessa. Her mother, Lorraine, made her famous roast beef, and we were all sitting around the table in her candlelit dining room, talking about careers and aspirations. I just landed a job as a high school history teacher. I was excited. It was steady work, good benefits, and I loved the subject. I told them I wanted to someday write a book, maybe something about forgotten soldiers or unsung civil rights leaders. Lorraine smiled tightly. Took a sip of her wine. And then said, "Well, that's sweet. But Vanessa always did have a taste for men with drive." It was said with a laugh. But not really. Vanessa squeezed my hand under the table, gave me a look like ignore her. So I did. I let it go. That was mistake number 1. I thought Lorraine was just, opinionated. She was a retired executive, used to country clubs, corporate retreats, and champagne instead of beer. I wasn't her type, sure, but I figured time would soften her. That if Vanessa loved me enough, her mother's approval didn't matter. And for years, it seemed like it didn't. We got married after 3 years of dating. Small ceremony. Backyard wedding. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what life's supposed to feel like. I built us a life. Taught history. Coached JV basketball. Vanessa worked in marketing, long hours, lots of travel. But we made it work. Or so I thought. She'd leave town for conferences in Chicago, LA, Boston. Said they were quick trips, work heavy, no time for fun. I'd pack her bags, print her boarding passes, kiss her goodbye at the door. I helped her cheat. I just didn't know it. She'd come home with hotel soaps in her luggage and tell stories about boring breakout sessions and dry chicken at banquets. I'd believe her. Because why wouldn't I? She never seemed cold. Never cruel. We had our routines. Our inside jokes. The kind of love that makes you stop asking questions, until it's too late. The kind of love you don't question, until the day someone hands you a truth so sharp it cuts through 12 years of certainty in a single breath. It happened on a Tuesday. I got a call from her sister, Hannah. Her voice was shaking. "I didn't mean to get involved," she said. "But I can't keep watching it happen." I asked what she meant. Thought maybe Vanessa was sick. Or depressed. Something serious. Then Hannah said the words I'll never forget. "She's been seeing someone else. Since before you were married." Silence. I laughed. I thought it was a prank. 12 years. Who could carry on a lie that long? But Hannah didn't laugh. She told me the man's name. Andrew. Said he was a consultant. Said he worked with Lorraine for years, and they'd met through her mother, not her job. Said Lorraine encouraged the affair. Called it a backup plan. A man with ambition. And the worst part? I'd met him. At a family dinner. 3 years ago. Lorraine introduced him as an old colleague. I shook his hand. Poured him a drink. He complimented the ribs I made. All 3 of them, Lorraine, Vanessa, and Andrew, smiling across the table while I played host in my own damn house. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking. That night, I didn't confront Vanessa. I watched her instead. Watched the way she walked in, kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day. I looked at her and saw a stranger wearing the skin of someone I used to know. 12 years. That night, I didn't sleep. I started to remember things, little things. How she always packed her own bags for trips. How her mom would call and say things like, "How's our sweet Vanessa? She's still stuck in that sleepy little town with you." How Andrew always seemed to pop up when we visited Lorraine. And suddenly, all the puzzle pieces I'd ignored started falling into place. Not only had she cheated, but the people who told me they loved me, her family, helped her do it. And I had no idea how to come back from that. You ever start digging for answers thinking it'll make things clearer, only to wish you'd left the dirt untouched? After Hannah's call, I didn't sleep for 3 days. My body functioned, but my brain was on autopilot, watching Vanessa's every move with eyes I no longer recognized as mine. I still made coffee in the morning, still asked her how her meetings went, still kissed her forehead as she left for work. But in the cracks of the day, when she was gone and the house was quiet, I started going through everything. Emails. Receipts. Her calendar apps. Photos I hadn't looked at in years. And what I found wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was worse. It was ordinary. Trips I thought were business had Airbnb confirmations under Andrew's name. Dinners I thought were client meetups. Turns out, some of those same nights, she never left town. A lunch on a random Tuesday, 4 years ago, she said she was meeting an old college friend. I found the receipt in a shoebox of keepsakes in our closet. 2 entrees. A bottle of wine. And a note scribbled on the napkin, tucked beside the receipt like a souvenir. Missed you more than I should. Until next time, C. No signature. Just that single letter. And that was all it took. I had to sit down. I remember just staring at that napkin. How many times had I emptied that box to find a passport or a photo album? How many times had I trusted what she said without thinking twice? Then I found the emails. They were buried in an old Gmail account she barely used anymore. The kind she probably assumed I'd never look through because, well, who checks a 10-year-old email? Me. That's who. There were hundreds of messages. Most innocent, old shipping notifications, promotional emails, spam. But then there was him. Andrew P. Consulting @ The earliest email I found was from the summer before we got engaged. Subject line. Next weekend in Boston. The body read. I know you said you were still figuring things out with him. But I'll be there. And I want you to be too. That was the summer she told me she needed a solo trip to clear her head. She came back sunburned and relaxed. I remember picking her up from the airport, holding a little welcome home sign like a fool. I thought she'd gone to find herself. Turns out, she was losing me one email at a time. By Friday night, I had a folder on my desktop labeled Truth. I didn't know what I'd do with it. I just knew I needed it. Something to remind me that this wasn't a nightmare. That I wasn't overreacting or reading too much into things. It was real. All of it. So when Vanessa walked through the door that night, I didn't greet her with a kiss. I didn't ask how her week went. I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, folder up. She stepped inside, dropped her purse, and frowned when she saw me sitting there. You okay? I clicked one email open. She walked closer. Her smile cracked. Luke. I turned the screen toward her. Just a screenshot. The Boston trip. His email. Her reply. Her breath caught. And for the first time in 12 years, I watched her lose her words. Say something, I said. She stared at the screen like she didn't recognize her own life. Then, finally, how much do you know? Not what are you talking about? Not that's not true. Just, how much? I know enough, I said. But you can fill in the rest. She didn't sit down. She didn't cry. She just nodded. Slowly. Like someone finally surrendering to a truth that had been pressing on her for too long. Yes, she said. It's true. And just like that, 12 years shattered between us with the weight of 2 words. I wanted to scream. Break something. Demand reasons, names, why. But all I said was. Your mother knew. She didn't flinch. Didn't deny it. She thought you were too safe, she whispered. She said Vanessa would get bored. And did you? That one hit her. She blinked. Bit her lip. No, she said. Not until I listened to her. That's when I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't joy, it was the hollow, gut-shot kind of laugh that comes when you finally realize you were never the problem. I stood up, walked past her, grabbed my keys. Where are you going? She asked. To breathe, I said. Because in that moment, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a tomb built on everything I never saw coming. I always thought Lorraine was just cold. You know the type, polished, proper, never spills her wine, never says sorry. The kind of woman who hosts charity brunches but can't remember your birthday. I chalked it up to her being old school, raised in boardrooms and golf clubs. I figured as long as she stayed out of our way, she didn't have to love me. Just tolerate me. Turns out, she didn't just tolerate me. She despised me. The next morning, I showed up at her place. No warning. No polite text. Just rang the bell at 8 a.m. on a Saturday. I wanted answers, real ones. From the woman who sat across from me every Christmas with a smile that now felt carved out of wax. She opened the door, robe tied tight, not a hair out of place. Luke, she said, like I was an unexpected bill. To what do I owe? I held up the napkin from Vanessa's memory box. The one with the note. Her eyes flicked to it. Just once. Then she stepped aside. We sat at her kitchen island. The same place she used to serve me quiche and talk about how lucky Vanessa was to have someone so dependable. I looked around and felt like I'd just walked into the headquarters of a covert operation. How long? I asked. She poured herself coffee. No offer for me. Since before you proposed. That fast. That clear. Like we were discussing the weather. I nodded. Let it land. You encouraged it. She gave the faintest shrug. I encouraged her to keep her options open. You have to understand, Luke, Vanessa comes from a long line of women who don't settle. I almost laughed. Settling. I was the one making dinners, cleaning gutters, teaching kids American history for pennies while she found herself on business trips. She married me, I said. She married comfort, Lorraine replied. I stared at her. This woman, who once cried at our wedding. Who toasted to a future full of promise. Who kissed my cheek and called me son. You sat at my table, I said. You hugged me. You gave us that stupid anniversary clock. She tilted her head. People do strange things when they're protecting their blood. And what exactly were you protecting her from? She met my eyes then. Really met them. From waking up at 40 and realizing she built a life that bored her to death. There it was. No hesitation. No apology. Just the raw belief that I, a man who loved her daughter faithfully for 12 years, was somehow the mistake. She had a choice, I said. Yes, Lorraine said. And so did you. That one hit harder than I expected. Because in a way, she was right. I did have a choice. To ask more questions. To see the signs. To not let her family's affection blind me to the rot underneath. But that's the thing about trust, it makes you lazy. It lets you fill in the blanks with hope. And Lorraine? She was counting on that. I don't know how you sleep at night, I said. She took a sip of her coffee. Calm. Cold. With the doors locked and no regrets. I stood up, hands shaking. I couldn't yell, not in that house. That house didn't deserve my rage. It deserved silence. The kind that echoes. Before I left, she said one more thing. You were a chapter, Luke. Not the whole story. Don't take it so personally. I didn't turn around. Didn't give her the satisfaction. I walked out that door with no intention of ever returning. And on the way home, it hit me. Vanessa didn't fall into that affair. She was raised into it. Brought up to believe loyalty is negotiable, and happiness means keeping one foot out the door. And me? I was the fool who gave her 12 years of my life, thinking love would be enough to change her. When you've been lied to for 12 years, you don't go back for closure. You go back for clarity. Not because you still need them to explain, but because you need to hear yourself say what you should have said long ago. That's why I went home that night. Home. Funny how a word can lose meaning so quickly. The place where Vanessa and I hung anniversary photos. The couch we picked out together. The rug her mom said looked too cheap for the space. All of it, just set pieces now. A stage for a life I didn't actually live. She was sitting in the kitchen when I walked in. No wine this time. No tears either. Just silence. Like she knew this was it. Did you talk to her? She asked. I didn't answer. I just placed the folder of evidence on the table, the receipts, the emails, the photos I'd printed. All in chronological order, like a prosecutor prepping a case. She didn't look at it. Are you proud of this? She whispered. No, I said. But I'm done being proud of things that never meant anything to you. She winced, just a little. I was 23 when we met, Luke. I didn't know what I wanted. But you knew what I didn't deserve. That shut her up. I sat across from her. Not angry. Not cold. Just empty. You could have told me, I said. At any point. Any year. Any trip. Any lie you told with my keys in your hand and my dinner waiting on the stove. You had every chance. She looked up at me then, eyes glassy, voice tight. I didn't want to hurt you. I nodded. That old excuse. The one people tell themselves so they don't have to look in the mirror. You didn't want to hurt me, I repeated. But you were fine watching me give everything to someone who never planned on staying. I didn't know how to stop. You didn't want to stop. That landed. And it should have. Because it was true. She folded her arms across her chest like that might protect her from what was coming next. I don't love him, you know, she said. Then why him? She shook her head. He made me feel powerful. I let out a slow breath. And I made you feel what? Safe. Small. You made me feel loved, she said quietly. And I didn't know what to do with that. That's when I stood. Not out of anger. But because I was done sitting in that seat. Done being the man who waited for her to figure herself out while I kept folding laundry and making chicken parmesan. You don't get to be confused anymore, I said. Not with my life. Not with my heart. Not with my time. She reached for my hand. I didn't flinch, but I didn't take it either. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't love you anymore either. I just love the man I used to be around you. That one made her cry. Good. Because the man I used to be. He was worth tears. He was worth honesty. He was worth so much more than 12 years of pretending. I grabbed a duffel bag from the hallway closet. Packed only what I needed, some clothes, my documents, my dignity. At the door, she asked the last thing she'd ever ask me. What do I tell people? I turned. Tell them you made a choice. And I finally did too. The first morning after I left, I woke up in my brother's guest room. No alarm. No sound. Just light creeping in through beige curtains and the unfamiliar quiet of not being expected. And for the first time in years, I didn't start the day thinking about someone else. No morning texts. No coffee to make for two. No mental checklist of what I needed to do to keep the peace in a house that no longer had any. Just me. Breathing. You'd think after 12 years of marriage, the silence would hurt. But it didn't. It felt honest. That first week was rough. I'll be straight with you. There were days I stared at the wall too long. Nights I picked up my phone and almost texted her. Not because I missed her, but because my routine missed her. There's a difference. Grief doesn't just come from loss. It comes from realizing the thing you lost never really existed the way you thought it did. But slowly, something strange started to happen. I began remembering who I was before us. I started going back to the gym. Nothing crazy, just enough to sweat out the fog. I reconnected with old friends. One of them, Kevin, a buddy from college, called after hearing what happened. Man, I always thought you two were solid. That sentence used to sting. Now I just replied, so did I. He invited me to a poker night. I went. Laughed for the first time in weeks. Real laughter, not the performative kind I used to give at her family's dinners just to keep things light. Some people in my life disappeared during that time. Not maliciously. Just quietly. They didn't know what to say. Didn't want to pick sides. And honestly, I didn't want them to. That wasn't the point anymore. I wasn't rebuilding versus Vanessa. I was rebuilding without her. A few weeks in, I found an old notebook from before we were married. A journal I kept during my first year of teaching. There was a quote scribbled in the back page. You can't fix a broken compass by walking faster. That one stopped me cold. Because for years, I thought if I just did more, loved harder, worked longer, forgave quicker, I'd fix things. But I wasn't holding a marriage. I was dragging one. And I finally let go. One afternoon, Hannah, Vanessa's sister, called me again. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she said. I should have told you sooner. You did what you could, I told her. No, she replied. You did what none of us did. You stayed kind. And that's what kills me. I didn't know how to respond to that. Because kindness, it hadn't felt like a strength lately. It felt like the thing that made me a fool. But maybe that was the part of me worth saving. She paused before hanging up. She's still with him. But she doesn't look happy. I sighed. She wasn't happy when she had everything. By the second month, I had my own apartment. Small place. 1 bedroom. Wobbly fan in the kitchen. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. I painted the walls. Put up bookshelves. Got a dog. Started writing again, just little reflections, thoughts, journal entries that didn't need to impress anyone. One night, I sat down and wrote a letter I never sent. Dear Vanessa. I hope you figure out what it is you were looking for all those years. I hope you stop letting your mother's voice sound louder than your own. I hope he gives you the future you thought I never could. But most of all, I hope you someday understand. It wasn't that I wasn't enough. It's that you never stopped wanting more than what was real. And I was the realest thing you ever had. Then I closed the journal. No more letters. No more looking back. It had been just over 7 months since I walked out of that house. Since I put 12 years into a duffel bag and left the life I thought I'd built behind. And you know what? I was okay. Not healed all the way, but whole in ways I hadn't felt in a long time. I had a rhythm now. Morning started with coffee and silence, not the kind that hurts, but the kind that lets you breathe. My dog, Moose, rescued mutt, big heart, dumb as a rock, greeted me like royalty every day. I was working on a personal essay series. Just small stuff. But it felt good to create again. Then, one Saturday afternoon, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, it buzzed again. Same number. Something in my gut told me to answer. So I did. Hi, Luke. It's Vanessa. Her voice hadn't changed. Still soft, still careful. But now, it sounded like she was walking on a tightrope. I won't keep you, she said. I needed to say something. I sat down at my tiny kitchen table, the one I built myself last fall with nothing but YouTube videos and stubbornness. Go ahead. She took a breath. I read your piece. The one you posted on Medium. I'd forgotten I even shared it publicly. It was about trust. About rebuilding. About learning that the hardest part of healing isn't getting over someone, it's forgiving yourself for staying too long. She said it was beautiful. Said it felt like I wrote it straight from her living room floor. And then she said this. I missed the version of me that existed when I was with you. I didn't respond right away. Because in those words, she wasn't asking to come back. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was just lost. I hope you find her again, I said. But I'm not him anymore. And I'm not coming back to save you. She was quiet. I know. She thanked me. For the years. For the memories. For the man I had been. And I thanked her, for calling. For finally admitting what neither of us could say back then. That we were never truly together. We were just convenient. She hung up. And just like that, I was free. A week later, I went on a date. Nothing fancy. Just drinks with someone I'd met through a friend. She laughed at my jokes. Asked real questions. Didn't check her phone once. She asked about my past, gently. I told her the truth, not all of it, but enough. She smiled. Sounds like you've lived a few lives already. Maybe, I said. But this one's my favorite. And I meant it. Because the man sitting at that table, he wasn't the guy who bent himself in half to be enough. He wasn't waiting for approval from someone else's mother. He wasn't mistaking loyalty for love. He was just me. Whole. Honest. Unapologetically unfinished. And finally, he was okay with that.